let's dig into where we are with the Ukrainian-Russian situation. So Donald Trump is attempting to get to the... I mean, he made it a campaign promise that he would achieve a stoppage of the bloodletting, right? Sure. A peace, if you will. And I guess one can have different definitions over what constitutes peace.
Sure.
But he's trying to get folks to the table. And he had this to say earlier today about the situation. Think of it, and this was on his Truth Social. Think of it, a modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion. I think that might be a slightly exaggerated figure, but whatever. $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and a Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't Sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization? In that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us. We have a big, beautiful ocean of separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we send him is missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls. And the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something I'll admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky's done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. As normal with a Donald Trump post, there's a lot to agree with, a lot to disagree with, sure, and a lot to unpack, and some that, is not really worth unpacking. Where do you think we are in terms of our ability to negotiate a peace or a settlement in Ukraine?
I haven't seen what's changed. What is it that it appears to me that Putin, for example, does not view, and you said this during the break, doesn't view Ukraine as separate from Russia, that it belongs to Russia and that it's wrong for them to be independent. It's trying to get the Soviet Union of Soviet Socialist Republics back together.
Right.
Like, he's been pretty clear about that.
Right.
So that's his goal. Zelensky and the Ukrainian goal is we want to keep Ukraine. We want to be a sovereign nation that is not under Russian rule.
Mm-hmm.
And those seem to be intractable positions. They do not seem to dovetail. And so my question with Trump's post is, what are you trying to do? Like, what is the end game? And I asked this of Biden too. What you're saying, we stand with Ukraine. Okay, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
What is the goal here? Because I know for some of the listeners here that they think we have no strategic interest in defending Ukraine. Okay, that's fine. That's a policy position. Then we should just say, hey, we're done. We're going to cut off the spigot. Y'all work it out or y'all lose. And there's the other folks that say we must protect Ukraine at all costs. This is sort of the Biden position of it doesn't matter what it is. Hey, well, as long as it's not troops on the ground. Like, he didn't go there, but it will give you money and stuff.
I think he would have.
Maybe at some point.
But what I don't understand with the end game and sending money and then munitions and then training mechanism. That was my fear. Sort of a slow creep.
Yeah, the half pregnant war.
Right,
and this to me is the problem. Is we had no clarity of goal with Biden, and then Trump posts this. What's the point? What are you trying to get at?
Well, right. I think Trump during the campaign and for the first month of his presidency, and I don't disagree with you that the post that I just read you is a little bit all over the place, but the goal was fairly clear. I want to achieve peace. I want to stop the killing and stop the dying.
Right.
Okay.
That has not happened.
No, obviously it hasn't. And in answer to your question, I think many want or expect that Putin is willing to leave this without some form of victory that he can claim back in his home country.
Right.
I don't think and I don't like it, even saying it, but I don't think it's realistic that the bloodshed is going to stop without giving something to Russia.
I think that's absolutely true. And so
what that is and how that looks,
But
I don't
what
know.
part? So in any war context, I was kind of thinking about this, like if we found ourselves in a similar position, that we've been attacked, and so to prevent future bloodshed, we've got to give something up. How would we respond as Americans to somebody saying, "Look, you can't win this. You got to give something up here"? I mean, we tell them to go to hell. I mean, we would lose our minds.
Well, but is that statement true?
What?
Right. So if the options on the table in this circumstance are that if the United States of America withdraws monetary funding, which we are on the record as saying that's going to happen,
Yeah.
then it's not going to get better for Ukraine.
Certainly not.
And it's not good for Ukraine now.
Yeah. Those are the exact same conditions as the American Revolution in relation to the French.
Right.
If the French did not, if Benjamin Franklin didn't do Vladimir Zelensky in France, we don't exist as a country.
And I would suggest that, I mean, you can compare the two if you want. I don't know that Ukraine is the freedom-loving, pure nation that we look at.
We weren't either. We were basically an oligarchy at that point.
I mean, but so I don't know that the comparisons necessarily are apt in the sense that the French had interests in our nation, right? So you're saying that America is right in impressing upon the Ukrainians that we would demand rare earth minerals for our continued support.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out
plan style is actually okay. I mean, I don't know what the amount is, like what the fair sort of, security is, hey, we're expending a lot to do this. We'd like to get some of that back. We can also say, just tell me what the strategic interest is. Like, do we really need Ukraine to be strong and a member of NATO to protect against a aggressive Russia or not? And if we don't, then okay, that's a different calculus. But I have yet to hear Trump or Biden or frankly anybody since this thing started tell me what our interest is, how we protect that, and what that actually looks like.
So if we don't, right. So what is the American interest outside of our interest in certain aspects of the Ukrainian territory, like rare earth minerals?
Yeah, I mean, this would be if we believe, and this is an if, I don't know the answer to this. If we believe that Putin's aggression will continue into Europe, we do have treaties with some of those other countries that
the NATO nations
that pulls us in, right? That we have a treaty obligation to defend member nations of NATO. And if we think, hey, protecting Ukraine is a more strategically beneficial way of holding Russia at bay than surrendering Ukraine and then having to hold a different line, okay, that's a position we can take.
Well, I think through a negotiation that makes sense.
Sure.
I don't think it makes sense if you say that the American people do not support the idea of aggressively defending that territory with our own troops. They just don't.
No, but I mean, again, using the analog to the American Revolution, the French weren't. I mean, it's kind of funny how some of the parallels work. I mean, Benjamin Franklin was literally, he wore a coonskin hat instead of a wig, and it really
to come off as a rube.
Right. It was just, hey, I want to show how American and exotic I am. Anyway, those things are really interesting, but that
was hat in hand diplomacy. I don't see Zelensky engaging in hat in hand diplomacy with Donald Trump.
He's definitely begging for support.
He wants money.
Yeah, he wants support for the war. It's pretty clear. I don't think, look, if he's a bag man and he's saying, give me the money and I'm going to run off with it. The one thing that I think is absolutely true is it's a bad idea not to have elections. It is a bad idea. Now, Trump's wrong about, Frank Luntz posted and said, hey, look, Zelensky's popularity is north of 50%. It's actually higher than Trump's. And that.
Boy, I really believe Frank Luntz is polling, Cameron.
Okay.
I mean, boy, oh boy, can I tell you the number of times he's been right?
The point notwithstanding, thank you. You have an election, right? Like, I get it. You're at war. It's not convenient.
Just have an election.
But if you are saying, well, our war is so pressing that we can't do the thing we're trying to defend, then maybe you don't really believe
Zelensky's
it.
also done the same thing with the press. Mm-hmm. He's suspended the rights of the free press in Ukraine because, martial law. He's done a lot of things that go against the basic prospects.
Yeah, and let's be clear. This is an old Soviet bloc country that's not exactly American-style republic that we are right now. But some of the things in our early formation, we weren't quite as freedom-loving as we like to remember things.
What happens if we just pull out? So my question is, what happens if we say, you know what, we're out? This is a lot closer to Europe than us. The Europeans feel like they can do it better than us. We're just going to take our money. We're going to take our negotiators, and we're going to pull out of this, and y'all can handle it. What happens then?
I think the Europeans have a choice. I mean, that's a policy position that I'm actually, if we say we have no interest, and that is what we need to do, then we should just pull out.
Well, if our interest is rare earth minerals, or whatever else the Ukrainians can bring to,
that's not enough.
But if that's our interest, and you're bargaining against that with, you have to guarantee our security for the foreseeable future, and we're not willing to do that, then that's what we should do. We should leave.
Yes.
We're either if that's the hill he's going to die on, if Zelensky says we have to have security guarantees, which is what he has said, and I'm willing to talk to you about rare earth minerals. And here's the funny thing. After 200, whatever the figure is, I think it's closer to 200, not 350 billion. But whatever. Say it's 100 billion. We're talking about buying rare earth minerals from Ukraine, not them giving them to us.
Right.
Right. So we're not being recompensed. Anyway, bottom line is, if you're not willing to do that, then I don't think there's anything else to talk about.
Yeah. And I don't know if the status of negotiations on that type of thing, if, Trump tends to be like, I need 500 billion.
No, he goes way,
right. And then, okay, we get back. If I'm Zelensky, I'm in the deal cutting mood right now. And I would say, okay, I hear you. Can we meet you part way?
Chris writes in, and I think Chris brings up a good point. He said, I thought we pulled out financially already. I think we have cut off the spigot, but I think the money that was already in the pipeline is still.
Yeah, when Congress appropriates money, then the money has to go to that thing.
Right.
Like you can play with it within certain parameters, but
they tried to get some additional funding appropriated right before Joe Biden left, because they knew that Donald Trump was going to shut it down, and that didn't work either. But the money that was already in the pipeline is still being utilized. And so, I mean, to a large degree, I guess you're right, Chris, that, we have, we've cut it off at the point that Donald Trump became president, and the Congress has not appropriated any additional
I think we just need to be real clear about, do we want to save Ukraine or not? There's not a half measure here. It's either you save Ukraine as an independent nation, you work with Europe, and you thwart Russia because you think it's important for our strategic interest, or you say, it's not that important, we'll let Europe handle it and we'll not worry about it, then you pull out. I don't want us to be a part way, we're playing with this stuff and not doing a good job.
I believe the only way you accomplish that task is to commit militarily.
So this is where people say, well, we have to commit boots on the ground. Okay, imagine that Trump says, hey, here's the deal. You back your forces out of these areas of Ukraine by this date, or we're going to wipe them off the map. We can do that. And we're not going to blow up anything in Russia. We're not attacking Russia.
You don't think that there are forces that would back Russia up at that stage?
No.
If we engage in...
Absolutely not. Not right now. I don't think that China has
I'm talking about Iran.
Iran would blow us up today if they could. It's not like Iran is looking for an excuse. I mean,
I'm just saying that if you commit to that level of escalation,
the only player
there are unintended consequences.
The only one, only one that I strategically care about is China, and I do not think that China has any interest in a emergent Russian superpower. They would say, y'all are struggling with Ukraine. We're going to let you kind of get your tail whooped, and then you're a patsy state for us.
And then we're engaging in what is ultimately a world conflict. If Europe's behind us, and maybe Russia doesn't have anybody necessarily behind them militarily, but I think materialistically, I mean, China needs their oil and gas, don't they?
Yeah, but wouldn't I rather just take it? If I'm China and I can see that Russia gets bounced out of Ukraine because the United States is like, bye. Then I'm like, okay.
But in my scenario, Russia doesn't go anywhere. Russia says, okay, bring it on. Then what do we do?
We would have the Russian forces in Ukraine, we could have out of there very fast or destroyed. And China is not going to deploy.
How are we going to do that without boots on the ground? I mean, you have to have material boots on the ground in order to accomplish that. And then you have to keep boots on the ground to
you have
keep
Ukrainian soldiers that are there.
But what I'm saying is that you're engaging in a war at that point.
You're engaging in the defense of Ukraine.
You're in a war. You're in an American war. You can call it whatever you want. You're in an American
boots
conflict.
on the ground, and you said whether you want to do this or not. My point is, if we're going to give security guarantees, what do you think we're going to be in?
Well, but I'm just saying, if you I mean, I understand where you're coming from. You feel like if you play that card, nobody's going to call you. And in my scenario, somebody called you.
Sure. And if somebody calls me, then
we're in a war.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I mean, I just don't think the American people are going to support that.
And that's fine. That's a policy decision. I'm simply saying that you either do that and sort of deliver the ultimatum and say, get out.
Do you support that?
I like at least the ultimatum. I like the get out.
See, I don't like this because I think Trump would like that. I think Trump would like that.
Why do you think I said it?
I mean, I think Trump would dig that.
Right.
And
and what's the problem? Now, whether he wants to blow anybody up is a different question.
I don't think he does.
But why would you not leverage the ultimatum?
24 after that, because they call your bluff and then you have to go to war. And then young American men, die. That's why you don't do that.
Like my boys.
I mean, yeah, that's why you don't play around with that kind of crap. I don't like war.